My fiancée demanded I send my kids to boarding school for her brother, so I packed her things and kicked her out. I'm a 38-year-old father of two amazing kids, aged 10 and 12, and this is the story of how I almost made the biggest mistake of my life, and how I managed to avoid it just in time. Since losing their mother a few years ago, it's been just the three of us. The early days were the hardest, but gradually we developed our own rhythm, our own way of making things work. My son learned to help with laundry, my daughter became our family's breakfast specialist with her perfect scrambled eggs, and I mastered the art of being both mom and dad. Then Donna walked into my life at a friend's gathering about a year and a half ago. She was everything I wasn't: spontaneous, outgoing, always ready with a quick laugh or witty comment. After years of focusing solely on my kids, I felt that spark of connection again. She seemed to understand the package deal, me and my children, and I thought I'd found someone who could complement our family unit. The early days were promising, filled with those magical moments that make you believe in second chances. Donna would take the kids for ice cream after school, suggesting fun outings to the park or local festivals. She'd bring small gifts, a comic book for my son, craft supplies for my daughter. Looking back, I should have noticed these gestures were more about impression management than genuine connection. The gifts often sat unused, and the outings became less frequent as time went on. My children were unfailingly polite around her, but reserved. They'd exchange glances when she wasn't looking, or become unusually quiet when she joined our dinner table. I attributed their behavior to natural caution after losing their mother, a protective instinct to guard their hearts. Now I realize they might have sensed something I was too love-blind to see. When I proposed a few months ago, everything seemed perfect on the surface. Donna said yes with enthusiasm, diving into wedding planning with gusto. Our evenings became filled with discussions about venues, flower arrangements, and guest lists. She'd spend hours flipping through bridal magazines, creating Pinterest boards, and dreaming about our future together. I was caught up in it too, imagining how complete our family would finally be. But as the wedding plans progressed, subtle warning signs began to emerge. It started with small comments about our home, how cluttered it felt, how the kids' toys in the living room were unsightly, how their art projects on the fridge made the kitchen look messy. She began suggesting changes that seemed innocent enough at first, repainting the walls to brighten things up, rearranging furniture to create more space, storing away what she called excess items, many of which were my children's belongings. I dismissed these red flags, rationalizing them as natural adjustments when combining households. After all, compromise is part of any relationship, right? But the suggestions became more frequent and more insistent. She'd move things without asking, reorganize closets while I was at work, make pointed comments about how some people might find our home too child-centered. Then came the bombshell about her brother, Robert. It started as a casual mention over dinner, how he was going through a rough patch, lost his job, had some personal issues. I expressed sympathy, as anyone would. But then Donna began weaving him into our future plans. "You know," she'd say, "Robert really needs a fresh start. Wouldn't it be nice if we could help him out after the wedding?" Initially, she framed it as a temporary arrangement. I was willing to discuss it, wanting to understand the details. How long would he stay? What were his plans for getting back on his feet? How would we manage space and privacy? But Donna would deflect these practical questions with vague reassurances. "We'll figure it out," she'd say, or "family helps family." The situation reached its first critical point last weekend. Donna sat me down, her expression not of love or partnership, but of entitled impatience. She declared we needed to discuss the kids' situation, a phrase that made my stomach turn. Her true colors emerged as she laid out her shocking ultimatum. My children needed to be sent to boarding school to make room for her brother. The sheer audacity of her demand left me speechless. These weren't just rooms we were talking about. They were my children's safe spaces, filled with their personalities, their memories, their sense of security. But Donna spoke about displacing them as casually as if she were discussing rearranging furniture. Her justification was a masterclass in manipulation. "Think about it," she insisted. "Boarding school would give them a better education. They'd make new friends, have new experiences, and we could start our new life with Robert under our roof. Isn't that what you want? Don't you want what's best for everyone?" I tried reasoning with her, explaining how traumatic such a change would be for children who'd already lost their mother. I pointed out their strong academic performance at their current schools, their established friendships, their emotional need for stability. But Donna dismissed every concern with a wave of her hand, as if my children's well-being was an inconvenient obstacle to her plans. The situation reached its breaking point when I came home from work one day to find my kids' rooms in complete disarray. Without my knowledge or permission, Donna had taken it upon herself to start renovating. She'd moved furniture, taken down posters and photos, and boxed up personal items. My daughter's art supplies were packed away in cardboard boxes labeled storage, and my son's sports equipment was piled in the garage. My blood boiled at the sight of my children's spaces violated like this. But what I discovered while cleaning up the mess she'd made turned my anger into cold fury. Mixed in with her renovation plans were property documents she'd been researching, information about adding names to house deeds after marriage, legal rights of spouses to shared property, even notes about local rental market values. That's when everything clicked into place. This wasn't just about her brother needing a place to stay. This was a calculated plan to take over our home. The boarding school suggestion wasn't about education. It was about removing my children so she could reshape our home according to her vision. The brother was just an excuse, a way to begin the process of pushing my kids out. The next conversation we had was the last. When I confronted her about the unauthorized changes and the property documents, her mask slipped completely. "Once we're married, this house will be ours to do with as we please," she declared, not even trying to hide her true intentions anymore. "Your kids have had it long enough. It's time for changes. If you can't see that, maybe we shouldn't get married at all." I didn't hesitate. "You're right," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "We shouldn't." I canceled the wedding right there and then, packed up her things along with what she'd already moved in for her brother, and told them both to leave. I spent that night putting my kids' rooms back together, hanging up their posters, unpacking their belongings, trying to restore their sense of security that Donna had so callously disrupted. The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect. Donna launched a full-scale campaign to paint herself as the victim, telling anyone who would listen how unreasonable and cruel I was being. Her family bombarded me with messages about how I was leaving her brother homeless, how I'd humiliated them all, how I was destroying Donna's dreams of a perfect wedding. They even tried to guilt me about wedding expenses, demanding I reimburse all the deposits since I was the one who canceled. Through my attorney friend's advice, I agreed to split the non-refundable deposits proportionally to our contributions, though Donna fought this tooth and nail. She wanted me to cover everything, claiming I was at fault for the cancellation. I stood firm. She gave me an ultimatum between my kids and her, and I simply chose my kids. My children, though they'd picked up on the tension, showed visible relief when I told them the wedding was off. My older child's question, "Does that mean we're not moving away?" And their happy smiles when I assured them they were staying put confirmed I'd made the right decision. They helped me restore their rooms, and we spent the weekend reinforcing our family bonds with their favorite activities and comfort foods. The final confrontation came when Donna showed up unannounced to collect her remaining belongings. As she gathered her things, she couldn't resist one last attempt at manipulation. "You really threw away our future just because you couldn't compromise about the kids," she accused, her voice dripping with bitterness. I looked at her, seeing clearly now what I'd been blind to before. "They're not just the kids, they're my children," I responded. "And what you wanted wasn't a compromise, it was an eviction. You tried to force my children out of their home so you could move your brother in and take over. I found the property documents, Donna. I know what you were really planning." Her face changed then, the mask of injured innocence dropping completely. "This house is too big for just 3 people, she snapped. "It's wasteful. Robert needs it more than your kids do. They could have adjusted to boarding school. Plenty of children do." "But my children shouldn't have to," I replied firmly. "This is their home and it will stay their home. You showed me exactly who you are, someone who would displace 2 children for your own gain. That's not how family works." Her tears and accusations of betrayal didn't move me anymore. I'd seen the property documents. I'd witnessed her casual cruelty toward my children, and I understood her true motives. When she left for the final time, cursing under her breath, I felt nothing but relief. The weeks that followed were busy with cancellation notices to guests and dealing with the fallout from both sides of the family. Some understood immediately, others tried to mediate, and a few bought into Donna's version of events. I kept my explanation simple and dignified. We had irreconcilable differences about living arrangements and my children's well-being. Donna's family continued their campaign of guilt and manipulation, sending messages about how their brother was struggling to find housing, how Donna was devastated, how I'd ruined everything. I blocked most of them after a particularly nasty message suggesting my late wife would be ashamed of me for not helping family in need. That was the final straw. Using my children's deceased mother as emotional leverage was beyond despicable. Looking back now, I'm grateful for those red flags I initially ignored. They ultimately saved us from what could have been a devastating situation. My children are still here in their home, surrounded by their memories and security. The financial hit from canceled deposits stings, but it's a small price to pay for protecting what matters most. I may have lost a fiancé, but I protected my family. My children will grow up knowing their father put them first, and that's worth more than any wedding could ever be. Our home remains our sanctuary, and no one will ever again threaten to take that away from us. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from something that looks perfect on the surface but threatens what matters most. I canceled a wedding, but I saved my family, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. The experience has changed how I approach relationships now. I'm more cautious, more observant of how potential partners interact with my children. I watch for the small signs I missed with Donna, the subtle dismissals, the little attempts to minimize my children's presence in their own home. But most importantly, it's reinforced what I've known all along. My children and their well-being come first. No relationship, no matter how promising, is worth compromising their security and happiness. We're a package deal, and our home is our foundation. Anyone who wants to be part of our lives needs to understand and respect that. As for Donna and her brother, I heard through mutual friends that they eventually found an apartment together. Sometimes I wonder if that was their plan all along, to use marriage as a way to secure a free living situation. Either way, I'm just grateful I discovered their true intentions before it was too late. My kids and I are stronger now, more united than ever. We've learned that home isn't just about the physical space. It's about the love, trust, and security we build together, and that's something worth protecting at all costs.